October 1944. The Vosges Mountains of France rose like ancient sentinels against a gray European sky, their slopes thick with pine and shadow. Deep in the forest where the trees grew so dense that sunlight barely touched the earth, a young German soldier pressed his back against the cold stone wall of a bunker, his breath coming in short, painful gasps. Blood seeped through his fingers where they clutched his shoulder. The wound was bad, he knew it, his comrades knew it. But that was not what made his hands shake. That was not what put the taste of copper fear in his mouth. Through a narrow gap in the concrete, he could see them. Dark shapes moving up the hillside with methodical precision. Low to the ground, patient, deadly. They advanced like hunters who knew every tree, every rock, every shadow could mean life or death. His companion, younger, barely 18, whispered the question that hung between them like smoke. Amerikaner. The wounded soldier shook his head. His voice, when it came, carried a weight that made the boy's eyes go wide. Nein, schlimmer, die Japaner Amerikaner. The impossible. The Japanese Americans. The ones from the prison camps. The boy laughed, a nervous sound that died quickly in the damp air. It made no sense. How could men his commanders dismissed as unreliable prisoners be out there systematically dismantling German positions that had held against British regulars and American infantry? Then the shooting started. The sound of it sharp and precise. Not the wild spray of inexperienced troops, but the careful, measured fire of marksmen who never wasted a bullet. The boy stopped laughing. In the moments that followed, as the shadows moved closer and the bunker filled with the smell of cordite and fear, both German soldiers understood a terrible truth. The men their own country had imprisoned were killing them with the precision of professional soldiers and the fury of men who had nothing left to lose. But this story does not begin here in the blood and smoke of a French forest. It begins 2 years earlier, 5,000 miles away, in the American West, where the desert stretched endless under a merciless sun and guard towers cast long shadows across rows of tar paper barracks. It begins behind barbed wire. March 1942, Manzanar, California. The internment camp rose from the desert floor like a wound in the landscape. Guard towers stood at each corner, their searchlights sweeping through the night. Machine guns pointed inward, not outward. That detail told you everything you needed to know about who was considered the enemy. 120,000 people. American citizens, 2/3 of them and born on American soil. Their crime was not action, not conspiracy, not betrayal. Their crime was ancestry, Japanese blood, yellow skin, eyes that looked like the enemy who had bombed Pearl Harbor 4 months earlier. They had been given 48 hours. 48 hours to abandon homes their families had owned for generations, to sell farms for pennies on the dollar to neighbors who smiled while they stole. To pack what they could carry and leave behind everything that said they belonged here, everything that said they were American. The camps had pleasant names: Manzanar, Tule Lake, Heart Mountain, names that suggested vacation resorts rather than prisons. But the barbed wire told the truth. The armed guards told the truth. The dust that blew through every crack and covered every surface told the truth. In Barrack 34, Block 12, a young man sat on a narrow cot, his back against the wall, staring at a letter he had already read 17 times. The paper was worn soft from handling. The creases threatened to tear. James Takeshi Morrison. Everyone called him Tak. 24 years old, though some days he felt ancient, other days impossibly young. His face carried the sharp angles of his father's Irish ancestry, mixed with the smooth planes of his mother's Japanese heritage. A face that belonged nowhere. A face that belonged to America if America would claim it. His father had been a soldier once. First World War. Came back with medals and memories he never talked about. Taught Tak to shoot in the Oregon forest where they lived. Taught him to read wind and terrain and the patterns of moving targets. Taught him that a good rifle in the right hands could feed a family. Protect a family. His father also taught him about duty, about sacrifice, about how freedom always carried a price, and that price was paid in blood and sweat, and the willingness to stand up when standing up was hard. Now his father was dead. Heart attack 2 years ago, and his mother was in the next barracks over coughing in the dry air that was slowly killing her. The desert did not agree with lungs accustomed to the damp forests of the Pacific Northwest. Tak folded the letter, put it with the others in the small wooden box under his cot. Letters to his mother that he never sent because what could he say? That he was angry, that he was ashamed, that he wanted to fight for a country that had put her behind wire. The door opened. Two men entered, bringing dust and the smell of the communal mess hall with them. Spam and canned beans, the taste of government charity, the taste of second-class citizenship. Robert Yamada came in first. Everyone called him Bobby. 28 years old, UC Berkeley, graduate engineering degree, gathering dust while he sat in a camp designed for enemy aliens. His family had owned 300 acres in California's Central Valley. Good land, productive land, worth a fortune. The government had seized it. National security, they said. Military necessity. Bobby's father had spent 40 years building that farm from nothing. Gone in a day. Bobby's face showed nothing. That was his way. Everything calculated. Everything controlled. But his eyes, dark and sharp, missed nothing. He moved like a chess player, always thinking 3 moves ahead. Behind him came Daniel Fujiwara. Danny, 19 years old, fresh from Hawaii, where the ocean met the sky and life tasted like salt and pineapple. His family had fished for 3 generations. Small boat, hard work, honest living. Danny smiled, always smiled. It drove some people crazy, that smile. How could he smile in a place like this? But those who knew him understood. The smile was armor. The smile was defiance. The smile said they had not broken him yet. Bobby sat down on the opposite cot. Danny remained standing, too restless to sit. He had been playing baseball outside until the dust storm drove everyone indoors. His pants were covered in dirt. "You see the notice?" Bobby asked. Tok nodded. The notice had gone up that morning. Recruitment. The U.S. Army wanted volunteers, Japanese-American volunteers. They would form a new unit. All Nisei, all volunteers, fight in Europe. The irony was so thick you could taste it. The same government that had locked them up now wanted them to die for it. The same country that questioned their loyalty now asked them to prove it with blood. "You thinking about it?" Danny asked. His voice carried the musical lilt of the islands. Made everything sound lighter than it was. Tok looked at his hands. Strong hands. Farmer's hands, his father used to say. But they could shoot. God, they could shoot. At 14, he could drop a pheasant at 100 yards. At 16, he could hit a running deer. At 20, he had won every shooting competition in 3 counties. Now those hands sat idle while the world burned. "My mother doesn't want me to go," Tok said finally, his voice quiet. "She says they don't trust us. Says why should we die for them?" Bobby leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "She's not wrong." "No," Tok agreed. "She's not." Silence filled the space between them. Outside, the wind picked up, throwing sand against the walls. Somewhere a child cried. Somewhere a woman sang a lullaby in Japanese, the words drifting through the thin walls like ghosts. "But if we don't go," Bobby said, "they win. They prove we're not American. They prove we can't be trusted. Every kid growing up in these camps will carry that. Forever." Danny stopped pacing, looked at both of them. His smile faded. For once, his face showed something else, something harder. "We can't win here," Danny said. "Not behind wire, but out there on a battlefield. We prove it where it matters, with actions, not words." Tok thought about his father, about Oregon forests, about the rifle his father had taught him to shoot, about being American when America did not want you, about proving you existed, about proving you belonged. He stood, walked to the small mirror hanging on the wall, looked at his face. Half Irish, half Japanese. All American, his father used to say. All American, even if America forgot. "I'm going to sign up," Tok said. Bobby nodded. "Me too," Danny grinned, the smile back bright as island sunshine. "Well, hell, somebody's got to keep you two alive. Might as well be me." 3 days later, they stood in line with 1,400 other young men. Men from camps all across the American West. Men who had every reason to say no and chose yes anyway. The line stretched for hours. The questions were insulting. "Are you loyal? Will you renounce the Japanese emperor?" As if they had ever pledged loyalty to him in the first place. But they answered. They signed. They raised their right hands and swore an oath to a country that had broken its oath to them. They became the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. Their motto, chosen by the men themselves, was simple: go for broke. A Hawaiian phrase meaning to risk everything, to gamble it all, to hold nothing back. They would live that motto, die by it, make it legend. But first they had to survive training. Camp Shelby, Mississippi, summer 1943. The Deep South in all its humid, hostile glory. The heat pressed down like a physical weight, made breathing an effort, made thinking sluggish. But the 442nd trained anyway, harder than any unit around them. Longer hours, tougher standards. They had to. They knew they would be judged by a different measure. One mistake by one of them would be seen as proof of the failure of all of them. They carried the weight of an entire community on their shoulders every time they picked up a rifle, every time they ran an obstacle course, every time they marched in formation. The white soldiers at Camp Shelby watched them, some with curiosity, most with suspicion, a few with open hatred. The camp canteen on a Saturday night, the one place soldiers could relax, drink Coca-Cola, eat candy bars, pretend they were not about to ship out to kill and be killed. Danny stood at the counter waiting for his order. A Coke. Cold and sweet, the taste of America in a bottle. Behind him, laughter. Loud. Harsh. He did not need to turn around to know it was directed at him. "Look at that," a voice drawled, Mississippi accent thick as molasses. "Jap drinking our Coke, probably planning to poison the whole batch." More laughter. Danny collected his Coke, turned, smiled. 5 white soldiers, all bigger than him, all looking for trouble. "Tastes fine to me, friend," Danny said, kept his voice light, friendly, did not let them see the anger. "Friend, hand." The biggest one stood, moved close. "I ain't your friend Tojo. None of us are." Danny's hand tightened on the bottle, but he smiled, nodded, started to walk away. Sometimes walking away was smart. Sometimes it was the only option. He made it 3 steps before something hit him in the back. The Coke bottle, thrown hard. It did not break, but it hurt. He stumbled, caught himself. "Where you going, yellow boy? We're talking to you." Danny turned. The smile was gone now. "You got something to say, say it." The big soldier grinned. Ugly grin. Mean grin. "I got something to say. You and your kind don't belong here. Should have left you all in those camps where you belong." "Well," Danny said quietly, "we're here now. Army says we're soldiers same as you." "Army's wrong." The punch came fast, caught Danny in the stomach, drove the air out of his lungs. He went down on one knee, gasping. The other soldiers moved in, circled him. He tried to stand. Another hit. This one to his face. Split his lip. Blood filled his mouth. He was going to die here. Over a Coke. In Mississippi. Never making it to the war. Then a voice cut through the darkness, pressing in on his vision. "That's enough." Bobby, walking toward them with that measured, controlled stride. Face showing nothing. But his hands were loose and ready. The big soldier laughed. "You want some too, Jap?" Bobby did not answer, just moved. Fast. Faster than a man his size should move. His fist caught the big soldier's nose. Bone crunched. Blood sprayed. The soldier went down, hands clutching his face, screaming. The others rushed Bobby. Mistake. Bobby had studied jiu-jitsu since he was 8 years old. His father had insisted. Said a smaller man needed to know how to use an opponent's strength against them. Bobby caught the first attacker's arm, used momentum and leverage, threw him into the second man. Both went down. The third swung wild. Bobby ducked, came up with an elbow strike to the ribs, followed with a knee to the face. The man dropped like a stone. The last one backed away, hands up, eyes wide. Jesus Christ. Bobby helped Danny to his feet. "You okay?" Danny grinned despite the blood. "Never better, Lieutenant." Footsteps. Running. A white officer appeared, drawn by the screaming. He took in the scene. 5 white soldiers on the ground or running. 2 Japanese Americans standing. The officer opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "What happened here?" Bobby met his eyes. "Self-defense, sir. They attacked us first." Long pause. The officer looked at the soldiers on the ground, looked at Bobby and Danny. Something changed in his expression. Not friendship, not acceptance, but perhaps a glimmer of respect. "Get to your barracks, all of you." News spread. The 442nd fights back. White soldiers started avoiding them, started looking at them differently. The camp's atmosphere shifted, not dramatically, not obviously, but enough. In the officers' reports, notes began appearing. These Japanese-American soldiers trained harder than standard, displayed unusual discipline, showed proficiency with weapons exceeding expectations. One report filed by a training officer who had been skeptical contained a single sentence that captured everything. They fight like they have something to prove. He had no idea how right he was. On the rifle range, Tak became a legend. Instructors watched through binoculars as he put bullet after bullet through the bullseye. 800 yards, 900, 1,000. The Springfield rifle in his hands like an extension of his body. An older sergeant veteran of the First World War stood beside the range officer. Watched Tak shoot. Watched him adjust for wind without thinking. Watched him breathe and squeeze and send rounds downrange with mechanical precision. Jesus, the sergeant muttered. He doesn't miss. No, the range officer agreed. He doesn't. Where'd he learn to shoot like that? Oregon, hunting. His father taught him. The sergeant grunted, spat tobacco juice into the dirt. Ways to put him in regular infantry. Boy like that should be a sniper. He's Japanese, Basais. He's American, and he's the best shot I've seen in 30 years. The sergeant turned, looked at the range officer. You want to win this war or not? 3 weeks later, Tak received orders. Sniper school, advanced training. He would be one of only 5 men from the 442nd selected, the first Japanese American in the program. He packed his gear, cleaned his rifle one more time, wrote another letter to his mother he would never send. In it, he told her about the training, about becoming a sniper, about how every time he pulled a trigger, every time he hit a target, he was proving her right, proving she had raised an American, proving they had been wrong to put her behind wire. He folded the letter, added it to the box, closed the lid. September 1943, the 442nd Regiment shipped out, not to the Pacific as many had expected, to Europe, Italy. The Fifth Army needed reinforcements. The Italian campaign had bogged down in mountains and mud. German defensive lines held against every assault. Casualties mounted. Fresh troops were required. The 442nd would do. If they failed, if they died, well. They were expendable. Their families were in camps. No congressman would complain. No senators would demand investigations. No mothers would write angry letters to newspapers. They were perfect for the impossible missions. The ship crossed the Atlantic in convoy. Submarines hunted them. Destroyers dropped depth charges that made the hull ring like a bell. Men got seasick, prayed, wrote letters home that might never arrive. Tak stood on deck one night, watching the moon on the water. Bobby joined him. They did not speak for a long time, just watched the waves, thought about what waited for them in Italy. You scared? Bobby asked finally. Tak considered the question. Yes. Good. Only stupid men aren't scared. Fear keeps you sharp. You scared? Bobby smiled slightly. Terrified. But I won't let it stop me. They reached Italy in late September. Naples harbor crowded with ships in chaos. The smell of diesel fuel and unwashed men and fear. They marched through streets where civilians watched with hollow eyes. This was a land that had seen too much war, too much death, too much of everything bad that men could do to each other. The 442nd moved north, toward the mountains, toward the Gothic line where German forces had dug in deep, where every hill was a fortress, where American and British attacks had broken against prepared defenses like waves against rocks. Allied soldiers watched the 442nd march past. Some whispered, some laughed. Japanese soldiers fighting for America against Germany. The world had gone mad. A British sergeant watching from a cafe turned to his companion. Those are our reinforcements, Japs. His companion, older, more tired, shrugged. Command sends who they send. Maybe they'll surprise us. Or maybe they'll run first time they hear gunfire. The older soldier lit a cigarette, blew smoke. Maybe, but look at how they march. Look at their discipline. I've seen a lot of soldiers, mate. These boys have something to prove. Men like that are dangerous. Dangerous to who, us or the Germans? Both, probably. The 442nd reached their sector, rugged country, mountains covered in forest, perfect for defense. terrible for attack. German positions overlooked every approach. Machine guns covered every trail. Artillery was pre-registered on every likely avenue of advance. They dug in, set up perimeter, sent out patrols, standard procedure, learned the terrain, find the enemy, report back. Tak went out on the third night, leading a 10-man squad. Bobby came as second in command. Danny on point. The rest were new replacements. Kids really, 18, 19 years old, fresh from the States, eager, Sherrod trying not to show it. They moved through darkness, single file, 20 feet between each man, silent, rifles ready. The forest smelled like pine and damp earth, like Oregon, like home. Tak found that comforting and painful in equal measure. 2 hours in, Danny held up a fist. Stop. Everyone froze. Danny pointed. Voices. German voices. Close. Too close. Tak moved forward. Slow, careful, every step placed with precision. Saw them through the trees. German patrol. 10 men, same as the American squad. Same mission probably. Reconnaissance. Find the enemy. Report back. Tak signaled. Pull back, quiet. Avoid contact. First rule of patrol. You don't look for fights, you look for information. They started to withdraw. Then the universe decided to be cruel. One of the replacements, nervous watching behind instead of where he stepped, tripped. Fell. His rifle hit a rock. The sound carried like a gunshot in the quiet forest. The German voices stopped, then shouted. Both patrols saw each other in the same instant. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes in the darkness. Chaos. Tak dropped return fire. 3 shots. Measured. Precise. 2 Germans fell. The others scattered, sought cover, fired back. Fall back, Bobby shouted. Regroup. The squad pulled back. Fire and maneuver. One group shoots while the other moves. Basic tactics, besides to identify six. But hard to do in darkness and forest with bullets snapping past your head. Danny provided covering fire. His M1 Garand barking steadily. Brass casings ejecting. Then he screamed. Hit. Leg wound. He went down hard. Tak saw it happen. Saw Danny fall. Saw him trying to crawl. Saw the Germans moving to flank his position. Bobby grabbed Tak's shoulder. We have to go now. Tak looked at Danny. Looked at Bobby. Looked at the darkness where the Germans were. Made a decision that his father would have understood. Get the squad out, Tak said. I'll get Danny. That's suicide. That's American, Tak said. He did not wait for Bobby's response. Just moved. Low. Fast. Using every tree, every shadow. His father had taught him to hunt elk in forests like this. Reading terrain. Controlling breath. Being patient. Hunting men was not so different. A German soldier stood to reload. Tak aimed. Breathed out. Squeezed. The German dropped. Another turned, searching for the shooter. Saw nothing. Tak had already moved. New position. Already aiming. Second shot. Clean. The German fell. The third German panicked. Fired wildly into the darkness. Gave away his position. Mistake. Fatal mistake. Tak's third bullet found him. Tak reached Danny. Can you walk? Danny grinned despite the pain. Blood dark on his leg. With help, yeah. Tak pulled him up. Started back toward American lines, but German reinforcements were coming. Boots pounding through the forest. Voices shouting orders. Many voices. Too many. Then gunfire. Different direction. American weapons. M1 Garands. Browning automatic rifles. Bobby's voice cutting through the chaos. Tak down. Tak hit the ground, pulling Danny with him. Bobby and 6 men charged past them. Counterattack, catching the Germans by surprise. The fight was brutal. Close range. Hand-to-hand in places. Bobby with his trench knife moving like a ghost, efficient and deadly as mathematics. When the shooting stopped, 8 Germans lay dead or dying. The American squad had 1 wounded. Danny, everyone else intact. They carried Danny back, called for medic, got him patched up. The wound was not fatal, but it was bad enough. He would be evacuated, sent to hospital, probably sent home. But Danny refused. I can still shoot. I can still fight. You can barely walk, the medic said. I can walk enough. They let him stay, against regulations, against common sense. But they understood. Danny had something to prove too. The German prisoner, the one who survived the patrol fight, was interrogated by American intelligence. The officer asked standard questions: unit identification, strength, positions. Then he asked, "What unit were you fighting?" The German looked confused. "Sie waren Japaner." The officer blinked. "You fought the Japanese." Nein, Japaner Amerikaner. Japanese Americans. The 442nd. The German nodded, looked at his hands. "I thought they would be, I don't know, weak, unreliable. We were told they came from prison camps." And the German met the officer's eyes. "They fought like Fallschirmjäger, like our paratroopers. I have never seen Americans fight like that, so precise, so aggressive, so efficient." The report went up the chain of command, noted, filed. But word spread anyway, through the regiment, through the division. The 442nd had drawn blood, had done it with style, with precision, with a effectiveness that made regular units look twice. British officers who had been skeptical started asking questions. American commanders who had been dismissive started paying attention. German intelligence officers who had dismissed the 432nd as a political experiment started updating their assessments. A single line appeared in a German intelligence summary dated October 1943. Simple words that would prove prophetic. 2nd Regimental Combat Team, Japanese Americans, previously assessed as low threat, recommend reassessment. Unit displays unusual tenacity and skill, not to be underestimated. In the mountains of Italy, as autumn rain turned trails to mud and cold crept into bones, the 442nd settled into the grinding routine of combat. Patrols, firefights, men dying for hills that had no names and villages that were already ruins. Talk-hunted Germans by day became a ghost, a rumor. German soldiers stopped moving in daylight in his sector. Too dangerous. 3 men, then 5, then 10, fell to unseen bullets from impossible distances. They started calling him Der Geist, the ghost. Bobby studied maps and terrain and German tactics, refined his own strategies, made his platoon into a machine. Efficient, deadly, they took objectives other units had failed to take. Did it with fewer casualties. Did it faster. Danny Legg still healing, still fought, still smiled, still made jokes that made no sense, and somehow made everyone feel better anyway. He became the heart of his squad, the reason they kept going when keeping going seemed impossible. They were proving themselves, battle by battle, death by death, blood in Italian mud. But the real test was coming. Hill 140, a German strong point that had broken 3 Allied assaults, a position so heavily defended that British command had declared it untakeable without unacceptable casualties. Allied High Command looked at the map, looked at the casualty reports, looked at the list of available units, saw the 442nd, decided to send them. If they failed, well, acceptable losses. If they succeeded, a pleasant surprise. Either way, the war would go on. They did not understand yet what they had created. Did not understand what happens when you give weapons to men you have wronged. When you ask for loyalty from men you have imprisoned. When you demand proof from men who have already given everything. The 432nd was about to show them, show everyone, show the Germans, show America, show the world. They were about to prove exactly what they were capable of when pushed to the edge and told to prove they belonged. They were about to become legend. February 1944, the Italian winter bit deep into bone and spirit, snow on the mountain peaks, mud everywhere else. The kind of cold that made rifles jam and fingers go numb and thoughts move slow as frozen honey. Hill 140 rose from the valley floor like a broken tooth, steep slopes, rocky ground, perfect fields of fire for defenders. Every Allied attack had broken against it like waves against a cliff. The British had tried first, lost 40 men before pulling back. An American battalion followed, made it halfway up before German machine guns cut them to pieces. 40% casualties. The survivors retreated in the dark, leaving their dead behind. Now the hill belonged to the Germans. and the Germans had made it strong. Concrete bunkers and interlocking fields of fire, MG-42 machine guns that could fire 1,200 rounds per minute, mortars pre-registered on every approach, mines scattered across the obvious paths, snipers on the ridgeline, artillery support from batteries 3 miles back. The German 305th Infantry Division held the position. Veterans, men who had fought in Russia and North Africa and France. They knew their business. They were confident. They had good reason to be. At Allied headquarters, officers stared at maps and casualty projections and shook their heads. Hill 140 was killing ground. Taking it would cost too much. Better to go around, find another route north. But Hill 140 commanded the valley. Any advance that bypassed it would leave German artillery observers watching every move, calling down fire, turning roads into graveyards. The hill had to fall. Someone had to take it. Someone expendable. A colonel looked at the roster of available units, saw the 442nd, recently arrived in sector. Fresh, or fresh enough. Japanese Americans, volunteers from prison camps, if they took heavy losses well. No political consequences. Their families were behind wire. No congressman would ask uncomfortable questions. No newspapers would run stories about grieving mothers. The order went out. The 442nd would assault Hill 140. Objective: seize the summit. Hold it. Allow the advance to continue. Expected casualties. Severe. Bobby was in the command post when the orders came through. He stood behind the more senior officers, studying the map, doing what he always did. Calculating, planning, thinking 3 moves ahead. He heard one officer say it, quiet, to another. Thought Bobby was out of earshot. The 402nd should do, if they fail, acceptable losses. And if they succeed, then we're pleasantly surprised. Either way, we move forward. Bobby said nothing. His face showed nothing. But inside, something cold and hard settled into place. Understanding, the kind that could not be ignored or rationalized away. They were not just soldiers. They were expendable soldiers, cannon fodder in American uniforms, sent to die because their deaths would not matter politically. He found Tak and Danny after the briefing, told them what he had heard. They sat in a cold tent breath, misting in the air, letting the truth sink in. Danny broke the silence. His voice had lost its usual lightness. So we're doing the suicide missions because nobody cares if we die. Yes, Bobby said. Tak looked at his hands. Strong hands, killer's hands now, hands that had taken 63 German lives on Hill 140's approaches during reconnaissance patrols. My mother is dying in Manzanar. I'm dying here, all to prove we're American, and they still don't care. The bitterness in his voice was new, hard, like something breaking inside that would never fully heal. Danny stood suddenly, anger in every line of his body. Fuck that. You know what? We prove it anyway. Not for them. For us. For our families. For every Nisei kid who grows up after this war. We show them what we are. Even if they never apologize. Even if they never say thank you. We prove it. Silence stretched. Then Tak spoke, voice quiet but certain. Go for broke. Bobby nodded. Go for broke. Danny managed a grim smile. Go for broke. The motto had new meaning now. Not just gambling everything, but commitment. Absolute. Total. Knowing the game was rigged and playing anyway because not playing meant accepting that they were less, that they did not belong, that their families deserved the camps. No. They would prove it on Hill 140, in blood and fire and German corpses. They would prove it so completely, so absolutely, that even America could not deny it anymore. Preparation took 2 days. Bobby studied every detail. Elevation maps, German defensive positions, fields of fire, attack routes that had failed before. He worked through the night calculating angles and timing and the mathematics of death. His plan was simple. 3 waves, fire teams leapfrogging forward, use every fold in the ground, every rock, every depression. Move fast, do not stop. Overwhelming aggression combined with tactical precision. Hit them hard. Hit them everywhere. Give them no time to react. Tak prepared differently. Cleaned his rifle. Again and again. Checked his scope. Adjusted for elevation and wind. Loaded magazines with careful attention. Each bullet mattered. Each bullet was a promise. To his mother, to his father, to himself. He wrote a letter that night, added it to the stack he would never send. Dear Mom, tomorrow we attack a hill. I don't know if I will survive. The odds are not good, but I need you to know something. Every trigger pull is for you. Every German who falls is proof you raised an American. They were wrong to cage you. I will prove it, or die proving it. Either way, you were right about me. I love you. Tak. He folded it, put it away, lay down on his cot, did not sleep. Just stared at the tent roof and thought about Oregon forests and his father's lessons and what it meant to be American when America did not want you. Danny spent the night with his squad, told jokes, bad jokes, the kind that made you groan and laugh despite yourself. Checked everyone's gear, made sure the new replacements, the ones who had never seen combat, understood what to do. Stay low, keep moving, trust your training, trust your brothers. He sharpened his knife, the one his father had given him. Hawaiian steel, good steel. It had killed 3 Germans already, would probably kill more tomorrow. Someone asked him if he was scared. Danny grinned, terrified, but being scared keeps you sharp. Fear is good, panic is bad, so we stay scared and stay smart, and we take that goddamn hill. Dawn came cold and gray. Artillery preparation began at Aero 5:30 hours. American guns hidden in the valley opened fire. Shells screamed overhead. Explosions walked across Hill 140 like the footsteps of giants. Earth and stone and steel flying. 10 minutes of hell raining down. Then silence. Sudden. Absolute. Ears ringing from the bombardment. Whistles blew. Officers shouted. The 442nd moved forward. The first wave hit open ground. German machine guns opened fire. The sound like tearing fabric. Brrr. Continuous, deadly, bullets everywhere, kicking up dirt, sparking off rocks, finding flesh. Men dropped, screaming. Not screaming, just falling and not getting up. But the 452nd did not stop, did not break, kept moving. Bobby's training showed. Fire teams worked like they had practiced 1,000 times. One team advanced while another provided covering fire. Used the terrain, every dip, every boulder, not heroic, not glorious, mechanical, efficient. The way you stayed alive long enough to close with the enemy. Tak was separate from the main assault. Positioned 400 yards out on a rocky outcrop. Mission: kill German machine gunners. Suppress their fire. Give the infantry a chance. He settled into position. Controlled his breathing. Scanned through his scope, found targets. MG-42 nest, 2 men, gunner feeding belt, assistant watching for targets. Both focused on the advancing Americans, not watching for snipers. Mistake. Tak breathed out. Squeezed. The gunner slumped. The assistant looked confused, started to reach for the gun. Tak had already cycled the bolt. Second shot, second kill. The nest went silent. He moved, quickly. Never stay in one position. German snipers would be looking for him now. New spot, 50 yards from the first. Different angle. Scanned again. Another MG-42 nest. These gunners were smarter. Hidden behind sandbags. Only helmets visible. Tak waited. Patient, still. A statue carved from mountain stone. The gunner shifted, adjusting his position. Shoulder exposed for just a second. Enough. Tak fired. The German spun, fell. The nest abandoned. Third position, fourth, fifth. By the time the first wave reached German trenches, Tak had neutralized 5 machine gun nests. 15 Germans dead. He had not missed once. Not one shot wasted. American artillery observers watching through binoculars from the valley called back to headquarters. Sir, their sniper is surgical. Who is that 442nd Japanese-American? Long pause, then, Jesus Christ, Germans are terrified of him. The main assault reached German lines. Hand-to-hand fighting, bayonets and knives and rifle butts. Close enough to see faces. Close enough to smell fear and blood and cordite. Danny's squad was pinned by a German counterattack. 20 Germans, maybe more, coming from a covered position. Superior numbers. Good training. They should have swept the Americans away. Danny did not retreat. could not retreat. Behind him were wounded men, men who needed evacuation, men who would die if the position fell. "Hold," he shouted. "Hold this position." He fired his M1 Garand. 8 shots. Reloaded. 8 more. The distinctive ping of the empty clip ejecting. Grabbed another. Kept shooting. Precise. Controlled. Making every bullet count. His rifle ran dry. No time to reload. Germans rushing forward. Danny drew his pistol, fired until it clicked empty. Drew his knife. His father's knife. Hawaiian steel. A German soldier lunged with a bayonet. Danny sidestepped. Years of fishing taught you to move on unstable surfaces. Taught you balance. He drove the knife up under the German's ribs. Twisted. The soldier gasped. Fell. Another German. Another. Danny was covered in blood now. Some his own, most not. He was still smiling. That terrible smile. The one that said death did not scare him. The one that said he had already accepted whatever came next. "Come on," he shouted at the Germans. "You scared of a kid from Hawaii." Bobby's wave hit the German counterattack from the flank. Perfect timing, calculated, precise. The Germans focused on Danny's position did not see them coming until it was too late. The fight was brutal. Bobby with his trench knife, moving like water, fast, efficient, no wasted motion. Every strike found vital targets. Throat, kidney, femoral artery. Men dropped around him like puppets with cut strings. The Germans broke, retreated up the hill toward the summit. The 442nd pushed forward. No pause, no rest. Bobby had calculated this. Momentum was everything. Give the enemy no time to regroup, no time to think, just pressure. Constant, overwhelming. The final 100 yards was the worst. Open ground, exposed. German riflemen on the summit firing down. Mortars dropping shells with methodical accuracy. Everywhere the sound of bullets and explosions and men dying. The 442nd took casualties. Heavy casualties. Men fell and did not get up. Medics worked frantically, called for stretchers, for plasma, for miracles they could not provide. But the 442nd kept moving, kept pushing, like a tide. Inexorable, unstoppable. They reached the summit at 14:30 hours, 14 hours after the assault began. German defenders retreated or died. The few who tried to surrender were taken prisoner, treated correctly, by the book. Despite everything, the 442nd maintained discipline, maintained honor. An American flag was raised on Hill 140, stars and stripes snapping in the cold wind. Victory. But the cost. The 442nd had started the assault with 800 men. 480 were casualties. Killed or wounded, 60% losses. Charlie Company began with 180 soldiers. 48 could still fight. The aid station overflowed. Medics overwhelmed. Wounded crying for water, for morphine, for their mothers. The smell of blood and antiseptic and gangrene already starting in wounds that could not be treated fast enough. Danny collapsed near the summit. Only then realized he was missing 3 fingers on his right hand. Grenade fragment. Sometime during the fight, he had not noticed. Adrenaline and fury and the need to keep fighting had blocked out the pain. Now he noticed. He looked at his hand, at the stumps where fingers used to be, made a sound between a laugh and a sob. "Well, fuck. That's going to make guitar playing tricky." Talk came down from his sniper position, moved like a ghost through the carnage. 63 confirmed kills in one day. A record. He should have felt proud, felt victorious, felt something. He felt nothing, numb, empty. His hands shook. Not from fear, from firing 63 times without pause. Muscle fatigue, finger cramps around the trigger. The scope had left a bruise around his eye from recoil. His shoulder ached from the rifle butt. He helped carry wounded, did what he could, tried not to think about the faces he had seen through his scope. The moment before each shot when the target was still a person, still someone's son or brother or father. Before they became just another body. German prisoners were interrogated, standard procedure. American intelligence wanted information. Unit identification, strength, Positions. One German officer captured near the summit sat with his hands zip-tied behind his back. Blood from a scalp wound had dried on his face. He looked at his interrogator with exhausted eyes. "What unit were you facing?" the American officer asked. The German shook his head, seemed almost dazed. "Japaner Amerikaner, the Japanese Americans." "The 442nd, the German nodded. "We called them Gefangene Soldaten, prisoner soldiers. A joke. Because we heard they came from camps, we thought they would be weak, unreliable, soft." And the German met the interrogator's eyes. "They are not prisoners, they are demons. They do not stop. We hit them, they come back. We kill them, more come. They fight like Fallschirmjäger, like our own paratroopers, maybe better. They have discipline we lost years ago. And something else. Desperation, maybe? Or fury, I don't know the word in English. But they are the most dangerous soldiers we have faced in Italy." Another prisoner, younger, spoke up. "My sergeant fought in Russia, against the Soviets. He said these Japanese Americans were worse. Soviets came in waves, numbers, overwhelming force. These men came with precision, with tactics, with accuracy that was terrifying. Our sergeant is dead now. They killed him. Clean shot, from 800 meters, through trees and wind. Impossible shot, but they made it." The reports went up the chain of command, noted, filed, but copies circulated. British officers read them. American commanders read them. German intelligence read them. The assessment of the 442nd changed, from low threat to high threat, from unreliable to elite, from expendable to valuable. Not that it mattered to the men bleeding on Hill 140. Bobby found Talk in the aid station, helping bandage wounded, his hands steady despite everything, despite the killing, despite the dying, despite watching men he knew, men he had trained with, men he had shared jokes and rations with, reduced to torn meat and screaming. "We did it," Bobby said. Talk did not look up from the bandage he was tying. "Yeah. You okay, Risto?" "No. You bear?" "No." They sat in silence. Around them, medics worked. Wounded moaned. Someone died quietly in the corner. No drama, just a last breath and stillness. "They'll send us again," Bobby said finally. "Another hill, another impossible mission. More men dead. I know. We're proving ourselves one corpse at a time." Talk looked at him then, eyes hollow. "Is there another way?" Bobby had no answer. They both knew the truth. This was the price. Hill after hill, mission after mission, death after death. Until either the war ended or they did. That was the bargain. That was what proving yourself looked like when the people demanding proof did not value your life. Danny joined them, right hand bandaged, missing fingers, face pale from blood loss but still conscious, still smiling that awful smile. "Hell of a day," he said. "Hell of a day," Bobby agreed. "We showed them, though. Germans won't forget this. Americans won't forget this. Everybody knows now. The 442nd can fight." "At what cost?" Talk asked. Danny's smile faded. For once, he looked his age. 19. Too young for this. Too young for any of this. "Whatever it takes," that was always the deal. "Whatever it takes to prove we belong. We paid today, we'll pay tomorrow, and the day after, until they admit we were Americans all along." That's the cut. He was right. They all knew it. The price of acceptance was blood. The price of recognition was death. The price of proving you deserved what should have been freely given was everything you had. They paid it on Hill 140, and they would pay it again. Soon. Word of Hill 140 spread through the Allied forces in Italy. The 42nd had done what British regulars could not, what American infantry had failed to do. They had taken an impossible objective and held it, but there was no rest, no time to recover, no rotation to the rear. 3 days after Hill 140, new orders came. Anzio beachhead, urban warfare, house-to-house fighting, German positions dug into every building, booby traps on every door, snipers in every window. The mission other units had refused. Too costly, too dangerous, too difficult, perfect for the 442nd. They marched north, depleted, exhausted, carrying wounded in their ranks who refused evacuation. Danny with his bandaged hand, others with worse injuries, but they marched. Because not marching meant admitting defeat, meant accepting that they were less, that they could not handle what white units handled. Bobby realized the pattern, saw it clearly now. Every time a mission was too dangerous, too costly, too likely to result in heavy casualties, command turned to the 442nd. Not because they were the best, because they were expendable. Anzio confirmed it, then the push toward Rome, then the Gustav Laumann, mission after mission, battle after battle. The 442nd took casualties that would have destroyed other units. 60%, 80%. Losses so severe that entire companies ceased to exist, were rebuilt from replacements, were destroyed again. In 2 months, the 442nd fought in 8 major engagements. Every other Allied unit rotated out for rest. The 442nd stayed on the line, always advancing, always attacking, always dying. Replacements came from other Nisei units, fresh faces, young men from Hawaii, from California, from the camps. They arrived eager, excited, ready to prove themselves. Within days, they learned the truth. The 442nd was a meat grinder. You went in a soldier. You came out wounded, dead, or harder than steel. The casualty statistics were brutal. The 442nd took 300% casualties, meaning they replaced their entire strength 3 times over. Every position filled, refilled, filled again with new men who died or were maimed. German intelligence updated their assessment again. Now the reports carried warnings, red flags, urgent advisories. 442nd Regimental Combat Team. Extreme threat. Recommend avoidance if possible. If engagement unavoidable, commit overwhelming force. Do not underestimate. They do not break. They do not retreat. They will fight until destroyed. One German intelligence officer, veteran of the Eastern Front, wrote a longer analysis. It was found after the war in captured documents. The language was clinical, professional, but the respect was unmistakable. The 442nd displays combat characteristics unlike any American unit encountered. Comparison to elite German formations is appropriate. Fallschirmjäger-level aggression, Waffen-SS-level fanaticism, but combined with American industrial efficiency and firepower. The result is extremely dangerous opponent. Motivation appears to stem from need to prove loyalty. This makes them impossible to demoralize, cannot be broken by casualties, cannot be intimidated by defensive positions, will accept any sacrifice to achieve objective, recommend treatment as elite unit, engage only with superior force in prepared positions. The report went to Berlin, was read by senior officers. They nodded, updated their tactical manuals, warned units on the Italian front, avoid the 442nd if possible. They cost too much to destroy. But in America, behind barbed wire and desert camps, families received telegrams. We regret to inform you. Son killed, husband wounded, brother missing, father dead. The telegrams came with mechanical regularity, official, cold, impersonal. The families had no voice, no way to demand answers, no congressman to call, no senator to write letters to. They were enemy aliens. Their loved ones were dying to prove they were not. The irony was not lost on anyone. In Manzanar, Tak's mother received no telegram because Tak was not dead. But she was dying, pneumonia, the desert air and stress and inadequate medical care. She coughed blood, grew weaker, asked for her son. The camp administrator wrote a letter, sent it through official channels. It would take 3 months to reach Tak. By then she would be dead 6 weeks. Tak would never see his mother again, would never tell her what he had done, would never hear her say she was proud, would never explain that every German who fell was him, proving she had been right, that he was American, that they should never have caged her. She died alone, in a camp, behind wire, a prisoner in her own country, her son a hero in another country. The distance between those two truths was the entire tragedy of the 442nd. But Tak did not know yet. He was in Italy, hunting Germans, adding to his count. Der Geist, the ghost. The sniper German soldiers feared more than artillery, more than airstrikes, more than anything except their own nightmares. He did not know his mother was dying, did not know the letters he wrote would never be answered, did not know that everything he was doing, every sacrifice he was making, would come too late to save the one person he was doing it for. He just kept shooting, kept killing, kept proving, because that was all he had left. That was all any of them had left. Proof written in blood on Italian hillsides, proof carved into German casualties, proof that could not be denied or dismissed or forgotten. The 442nd was proving themselves, one death at a time, theirs and the enemy's. The cost was staggering. The price was everything. But they paid it, without complaint, without hesitation, because the alternative was unthinkable. The alternative was admitting that America was right, that they did not belong, that they deserved the camps. No, they would prove it, or die proving it. There was no third option. There never had been. October 1944. The Vosges Mountains of France rose dark against an autumn sky, ancient forests thick with pine and shadow, steep valleys where fog gathered like the breath of ghosts, cold that seeped into bones and stayed there. This was not Italy. The terrain was different. The enemy, the same. German defensive positions, German determination, German certainty that they could hold. But now they faced something they had learned to fear. The 442nd had come to France. Deep in the forest, 211 men from the 1st Battalion, 141st Infantry Regiment sat surrounded, cut off for 5 days. No resupply, no reinforcement, no hope. The Texas Battalion, they called themselves. Good soldiers, tough men, but trapped in a pocket of German-controlled forest with supplies running out and enemy forces tightening the noose. They ate bark, drank from muddy streams, shared the last cigarettes, wrote letters they did not think anyone would read, waited for the end. 2 rescue attempts had already failed. The 2nd Battalion tried first, got mauled, pulled back with heavy casualties. A British unit was asked, refused, called the mission impossible, called it suicide, called it a waste of good men to save dead ones. Allied High Command studied the maps, calculated the odds, considered the political ramifications of abandoning 200 American soldiers to death or capture. Then they looked at the roster, saw the 442nd, those Japanese Americans, the ones who kept taking impossible missions and somehow succeeding, the ones whose casualty rates were catastrophic but whose mission completion rate was perfect. The order went out. 48 hours to break through 7 miles of German-held forest. Reach the Texas Battalion. Bring them out, or die trying. Bobby received the orders in a farmhouse that served as battalion headquarters. Studied the maps, traced the route with one finger. 7 miles did not sound like much. But every yard would be contested. Every tree could hide a machine gun. Every clearing could be a kill zone. Every ridge a fortress. He calculated casualties. Numbers he would never share with anyone. If they pushed hard, moved fast, accepted losses, and maintained momentum, they could do it. Maybe. The cost would be 800 men, maybe more, to save 200. The mathematics were brutal, but the mathematics were not the point. The point was proving that the 442nd did not abandon Americans, that they were brothers to these Texan soldiers, that they belonged to the same army, the same country, even if that country had not yet fully accepted them. Tak prepared for the mission like he prepared for every mission now, mechanically, without emotion. He had learned to shut off the part of himself that felt things, the part that remembered Oregon forests and his father's lessons and his mother's smile. That part got you killed, made you hesitate, made you think about the men in your scope as people instead of targets. He cleaned his rifle, loaded magazines, checked his scope. The routine was comforting, familiar. It was the only thing that still made sense in a world that had stopped making sense somewhere between Manzanar and Hill 140. Danny gathered his squad, briefed them on the mission. His right hand was still bandaged, 3 fingers gone, but he could still hold a rifle, could still fight. That was all that mattered. 7 miles, he told them, through Germans who know we're coming. They'll have every approach covered, every trail blocked, every high point defended. It's going to be bad. A young private, fresh replacement asked the question they were all thinking. Why us? Why always us? Danny smiled, that terrible smile, the one that had seen too much. Because we're the 442nd, because we don't fail, because somewhere in Texas, 211 mothers are praying their sons come home. We're the answer to those prayers, even if our own mothers are praying from behind barbed wire. The attack began before dawn. No artillery preparation. Surprise was more valuable than suppression. The 442nd moved into the forest in column formation. Fast, aggressive, no caution, no careful probing, just momentum. Constant forward pressure. The first German position they hit was a machine gun nest covering a forest trail. Should have stopped them, pinned them down, given the Germans time to bring up reinforcements. Instead, the 402nd Fire Team flanked it, 3 men providing suppressing fire while 4 others moved through the trees, appeared behind the position. Grenades, then rifles. The nest fell in 90 seconds. They did not stop to collect prisoners, did not stop to treat their own wounded beyond basic first aid, just kept moving. Forward, always forward. Bobby had calculated this. Momentum was everything. Give the Germans no time to react, no time to coordinate, no time to establish new defensive positions. Just pressure, relentless, overwhelming. The Germans tried to stop them, counterattacked, brought up reserves, threw everything they had at this column of Japanese Americans pushing through the forest like a spear aimed at the heart of their defenses. It was not enough. The 442nd took casualties, heavy casualties. Men fell every few hundred yards. Medics worked as they moved, bandaging, injecting morphine, marking the dead for later recovery. But the column kept moving. TOC ranged ahead of the main force, hunting, always hunting. German snipers had started targeting American officers, platoon leaders, company commanders, anyone who looked like they were giving orders. That was when TOC noticed him, another sniper. Good one, very good one. An American lieutenant dropped, clean headshot, from at least 600 yards, through trees, in bad light. TOC went still, scanned the tree line, saw nothing. But he knew. Knew with the certainty of one hunter recognizing another. There was a German sniper out there, elite, professional, deadly. The duel began. Hauptmann Klaus Fischer had been a sniper since 1941. Eastern Front first, then Italy, then France, 23 confirmed kills. A record he was proud of. He was patient, methodical, precise. Everything a sniper should be. He had heard about the American sniper, the Japanese one, Der Geist, the ghost, heard the stories, thought they were exaggerated, propaganda, rumor. Now he was hunting him, or being hunted, hard to tell which. For 2 days they stalked each other through the Vosges forest. Fischer would fire, TOC would move, TOC would fire, Fischer would move. A chess match played with bullets, each man trying to think like his opponent. Predict, anticipate, strike first. Fischer killed 2 more Americans. A sergeant, a radio man, both clean shots. Professional. He felt satisfaction in his work. These were worthy opponents, especially the ghost, if he was really out there. TOC killed a German machine gunner at 800 yards, through a gap in trees that existed for exactly 3 seconds as the wind moved branches. Impossible shot, he made it anyway. Fischer heard about it, understood. The ghost was real, was out there, was hunting him as he was hunting the ghost. The thought should have frightened him. Instead, Fischer felt something else. Respect. This American, this Japanese American, was a true professional, a master of the craft. Killing him would be an honor. Being killed by him would be no shame. On the 3rd day, dawn came cold and clear. TOC had not slept. Neither had Fischer. Both too stubborn, too committed, too aware that the first to rest would be the first to die. TOC spotted the glint, 800 yards, high in a tree, barely visible. Most men would have missed it. TOC saw it, knew what it was. Scope lens catching morning light. The shot was impossible, 800 yards, uphill, through branches, wind gusting. The target would move, would adjust position, would not stay still long enough. But TOC had no choice. The 462nd was pushing forward. Fisher was killing Americans. Officers, NCOs, men who could not be replaced. The Ghost had to kill the sniper, had to end this duel. He waited, controlled his breathing, let his heart rate slow, became still. Not just physically still, mentally still. The place his father had taught him to find, where there was no thought, no emotion, just the rifle and the target and the space between. The wind calmed for just a moment. The branches stilled. Fisher shifted position. 1 second, maybe less. TOC fired. The bullet traveled for what felt like forever. Crossed the distance. Found its mark. Fisher jerked. Fell. Crashed through branches. Hit the ground with a sound TOC heard even at 800 yards. TOC did not celebrate. Just moved. New position. In case Fisher had a spotter. In case there were other German snipers. In case death was looking for him now. Later, after the 432nd had pushed past that section of forest, TOC walked to where Fisher had fallen. Found the body. The German was still alive. Barely. Blood from a chest wound. Minutes left, maybe less. Fisher looked up at him, recognition in his eyes. He spoke in English, accented but clear. "You are the Ghost." TOC nodded. "I thought I would be the one to kill you. I was wrong." Fisher coughed, blood on his lips. "You are not prisoner. You are Krieger, warrior. I am honored to die by your hand." Then he was gone, eyes still open, staring at nothing. TOC closed them, took the dog tags, felt empty. This German had given him more respect in his dying words than American officers had given in 2 years. The irony was bitter, heavy, unbearable. He left Fisher there, continued forward. The mission was not done. The Texas battalion still needed rescue. Personal feelings, personal grief, personal anything had no place in combat. He had learned that, learned to bury it all somewhere deep where it could not hurt him. Later, there would be time for feeling later. Maybe, if he survived. The 442nd reached the last German defensive line on the 4th day. SS Panzer Grenadiers held the position. Elite troops, young, fanatical, they would not retreat, would not surrender, would fight to the last man. Bobby knew this, knew that asking his men to attack this position was asking them to die. The casualties would be catastrophic, the odds of success minimal. He attacked anyway, personally, led from the front. Officers did not do that. Officers stayed back, coordinated, commanded. But Bobby was not asking his men to do anything he would not do himself. If they were going to die, he would die with them. "Follow me," he shouted, then ran toward the German position. Insane, suicidal, heroic in the way that only futile gestures can be. His men saw their commander charging, could not do less, followed. The entire assault wave followed, poured out of cover, ran toward machine guns and rifle fire and certain death because their officer led them, because they trusted him, because they were the 442nd and they did not know how to quit. German machine guns opened up, MG-42s tearing the air. Men fell, many men, but the 442nd kept coming. Bobby took a bullet in the shoulder, spun, did not fall, kept running, fired his M1 carbine one-handed, reached the German trench, shot 2 Germans, third one jumped him, hand-to-hand, bayonet versus trench knife. Bobby was faster, stronger, meaner. The knife found the German's throat. The soldier made a wet gurgling sound, collapsed. More 442nd troops poured into the trench. The German line collapsed, broke. Survivors retreated deeper into the forest. The path to the Texas battalion was open. But the cost, Bobby's platoon started with 40 men. 8 were still walking. The rest dead or wounded. Danny was there carrying a wounded sergeant twice his size. Danny's face was gray from blood loss. New wounds, old wounds reopened, but he was still moving, still fighting. "Almost there," Danny said, grinning, one eye swollen shut from a rifle butt. "Just a little further." They pushed forward, found the Texas battalion perimeter. American voices calling out challenges, passwords, the careful identification of friend from foe. A Texas officer, Captain Thomas Wade, emerged from behind a fallen tree, skeletal, exhausted, barely able to stand. He looked at Bobby, covered in blood, wounded, still carrying a rifle. "Who are you?" 442nd Regimental Combat Team, United States Army. "We're here to get you out." Wade stared. "You're Japanese, bud." "We're Americans, like you." Wade broke down, right there, tears streaming down his face. "You came for us. You actually came." He grabbed Bobby's hand, shook it, would not let go. Other Texans were crowding around now, hugging 442nd soldiers, sharing cigarettes, water, chocolate, the last of anything they had. One big Texan wrapped his arms around Danny, lifted him off the ground. "Y'all saved our lives." Danny grinning despite the pain, despite everything. "No problem, partner. Just another day in paradise." The combined force moved out, heading back through the gauntlet they had come through. The Germans tried to cut them off, failed. The 402nd had opened a corridor, would hold it open until every last Texan was safe. The final count was brutal. 211 Texans rescued, 442nd casualties, 814, killed, wounded, missing, more than triple the number they saved. The mathematics were insane, unacceptable, horrific, but the mission was complete. Every Texan got out. The 442nd had proven yet again that they did not leave Americans behind, that they were brothers in arms, that they belonged. News of the lost battalion rescue spread through the Allied forces, through newspapers back home, through official channels and unofficial rumor. The 442nd became legend. Finally, the story too big to ignore, too dramatic to suppress, too heroic to dismiss. But in the internment camps, families still sat behind barbed wire, reading newspapers about their son's heroism, while living as prisoners. The contradiction was obscene, unbearable. Exactly what the 402nd had been fighting against from the beginning. Recognition was coming. Slowly, too slowly, but coming. In November 1944, Tak received a letter, forwarded through official channels, 3 months delayed. He opened it standing in the ruins of a French village. Snow beginning to fall, cold wind biting. The letter was from the camp administrator at Manzanar. Regretted to inform him. Mother passed away. September 14th. Pneumonia, buried in camp cemetery. Tak read it twice. Did not cry. Did not scream. Just stood there as snow fell on the paper. On his hands. On his face. Stood there until Danny found him. Read the letter. Understood. "I'm sorry," Danny said. Tak folded the letter. Put it in his pocket with all the others. All the letters to his mother he had never sent. All the words she would never read. All the proof he had accumulated that she was right. That he was American. That they should never have caged her. "I was earning medals while she died in a camp," Tak said. Voice flat, dead. What was it for Danny? What the fuck was any of it for? Danny had no answer. There was no good answer. Just the truth. The hard, bitter, unbearable truth. They had proven themselves. Paid the price. Earned the recognition. But for Tak's mother, for so many like her, it had come too late. She died a prisoner. Her son a hero. The space between those two truths was the entire tragedy of the 442nd, written in one family's story. Tak picked up his rifle, cleaned it, loaded it, went back to hunting Germans. Because that was all he had left. All he knew how to do. Prove his mother right. Even though she would never know. Even though it was too late. Every bullet was for her now. Every kill. Every mission. Not to prove to America. America had already been convinced enough. But to prove to himself. To justify what had been taken from him. From her. From all of them. The war ground on. Winter came. The 442nd fought through France, into Germany. The enemy was collapsing, but still dangerous. Still fighting, still killing. In April 1945, they liberated a POW camp. Small one, American prisoners, men who had been captured earlier in the war, held for months, years. They were skeletal, sick, barely human. When the 442nd broke through the gates, the prisoners did not celebrate at first. They saw Japanese faces. Panicked. Jesus Christ, Japs, we're being captured by Japs. Bobby, tired beyond measure, shouted back, "We're Americans, goddammit. We're here to save you." One prisoner did not believe him, refused to follow. "I'm not going anywhere with enemy soldiers." Tok, standing nearby, spoke quietly. "Sir, we've been fighting Germans for 2 years, lost 60% of our unit. Our families are in camps in America. We're Americans, please trust us." The prisoner stared, saw the American uniforms, the American weapons, the American flag patches, finally believed, apologized, broke down crying. Even freed prisoners saw them as enemy first. Even after everything, even after all the proof, some things, it seemed, could not be proven away. May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. Allied soldiers everywhere celebrated. Parties, drinking, dancing, liberation, victory. When the 442nd celebrated quietly. Bobby, Tok, and Danny sat on a hillside in northern Italy, watched fireworks in the distance, drank captured German schnapps, did not speak for a long time. "We won," Danny said finally. "Yeah," Bobby agreed. Tok looked at the stars. "Did we?" They both looked at him. He continued, voice hollow. "War's over. Our families are still in camps. We're heroes here, prisoners there. What did we win?" No one had an answer. They sat in silence as the celebrations continued below. As the world rejoiced, as they tried to figure out if any of it had been worth it. July 1946, 1 year after the war ended, the internment camps finally closed. Families released. The 442nd survivors invited to Washington, D.C., the White House lawn. President Truman personally awarded them the Presidential Unit Citation. 7 of them, more than any other unit. Truman's speech was brief, direct. "You fought not one enemy, but 2. You fought the enemy abroad, and you fought prejudice at home, and you won both battles." It was a triumph, recognition, vindication, everything they had fought for. But many 452nd soldiers were not there. Dead, wounded beyond travel, could not afford the trip. Bobby attended, stood at attention in his dress uniform, chest covered in medals, face showing nothing. Tok did not attend, could not face it. His mother's grave was in Manzanar, not here, not celebrating, just a numbered marker in desert sand. Danny attended, on crutches, missing fingers, blind in one eye, mostly deaf, but still smiling. Shook President Truman's hand. "Son, you gave everything for your country," Truman said. Danny's smile did not waver. "Respectfully, sir, I gave what I had to. Country took everything first." Truman had no response to that. The 442nd returned home. Not to parades, not to glory, to a country that still did not fully accept them. "No Japs allowed" signs still common. Jobs denied, housing denied. All the little indignities that said, "You proved yourself in war. But this is peace, and peace has different rules." Tok returned to Oregon. The farm was gone, sold to neighbors for nothing. His parents' possessions scattered or stolen. He visited his mother's grave, placed his medals on it. All of them. Silver star, bronze stars, purple hearts. "We won, Mom," he said to the stone. "Like you said we would. They believe we're American now, mostly. Sometimes. It's a start." He left the medals there, walked away, never went back. Bobby tried to reclaim his family's farm. Government offered to sell it back to him, at market rate, 3 times what they had paid his father. Bobby refused on principle, used the GI Bill instead, graduate school, engineering degree, then instructor at West Point, teaching tactics to a new generation of American soldiers. His legacy living on in students who never knew they were learning from a man who had proven his loyalty with blood while his family sat in a prison camp. Danny opened a restaurant in Honolulu, Hawaiian-American fusion, the walls covered with 442nd photos. Every veteran ate free. Every day someone would come in, share a memory, remember fallen friends. Danny listened, smiled, fed them. "This is my platoon now," he would say, "feeding people instead of shooting people. Better job." Years passed, decades. The 442nd faded from national memory. Mentioned occasionally, usually incorrectly. Most Americans did not know the story, did not know the sacrifice, did not know the irony. Then slowly recognition came. Real recognition. 1988. The Civil Liberties Act. Official apology for internment. Reparations. $20,000 per survivor. 43 years too late. Many 442nd veterans already dead. Never heard the apology. Never got compensation. But it came. Finally, America admitted it had been wrong. 2000. 21 442nd soldiers awarded the Medal of Honor, upgraded from lesser medals, 55 years after earning them, including Senator Daniel Inouye, who lost his arm in Italy, received his medal from President Clinton personally. Tak died in 1987, 1 year before the apology. Never heard his country say sorry. Never got the compensation. Never knew that eventually, finally, America would admit he had been right all along. Bobby died in 1990, 5 years before the Medal of Honor ceremony. Never received the upgrade he deserved. But his tactics were still being taught. His legacy still alive in every Army manual on small unit operations. Danny lived to 2011, age 86, saw the Congressional Gold Medal presented to the 442nd in 2010, highest civilian honor. 65 years late, a reporter asked him, "How does recognition feel after all these years?" Danny smiled, that smile, the one that had survived everything. "Feels good, would have felt better 65 years ago, but we didn't do it for recognition. We did it to prove a point. Point is proved. That's enough." He died 1 year later, surrounded by family, walls covered with photos of men who never came home. His last words were, "Go for broke." In Germany in the 1990s and 2000s, historians interviewed surviving German veterans. Asked about toughest opponents, many mentioned the 442nd, but most did not know the full story. When told about the internment camps, about families imprisoned while sons fought, the reactions were uniform. Shock, disbelief, then understanding. Werner Schmidt, former Fallschirmjäger, said it best. "We called them prisoner soldiers. A joke. We didn't know they really were prisoners, that their own country caged them. That explains everything. Their fury, their precision, their refusal to break. We respected them as soldiers. Now I respect them as men." In 2003, Tak's daughter received a letter from Germany, from Klaus Fischer's widow, found through veterans associations. Decades of searching. The letter was simple, direct. "Your father killed my husband in 1944. Klaus wrote about him, called him Der Geist. Klaus respected him, said he was the finest sniper he ever hunted. I hated your father for years, but recently I learned his story. Internment camps, his mother's death, fighting while imprisoned. I understand now. Your father was not just a soldier. He was a warrior, fighting not just enemies, but injustice. Klaus would have respected that. I respect that. I forgive your father. I hope he found peace." Tak's daughter cried reading it. Her father died never knowing the German widow forgave him, never knowing even his enemies understood what he had sacrificed. The story of the 442nd is uniquely American, because America at its best is about ideals transcending origin. Freedom, equality, opportunity. These men believed in those ideals when America did not apply them equally. They fought for the America that should exist, not the America that did exist. They proved their point. With blood, with death, with sacrifice so complete, so absolute, that even a nation built on the principle that all men are created equal could not deny them anymore. The statistics tell part of the story. 18,143 awards, most decorated unit in American military history for its size and length of service, 21 medals of honor, 560 silver stars, 9,486 Purple Hearts. But statistics do not tell the whole story. Do not capture 3 men becoming brothers in Italian mountains. Do not capture a sniper's duel at 800 yards. Do not capture a charge into machine gun fire because your officer leads from front. Do not capture fighting for a country that imprisoned your family. Do not capture a mother dying in a camp while her son earns medals. Do not capture veterans returning to discrimination. Do not capture recognition delayed decades. Do not capture an apology that came too late for most. But through it all, these men never complained, never demanded, simply served, simply proved, simply were American. Their legacy lives today. The U.S. military is diverse. Soldiers of every race, religion, ethnicity serve with honor. Nobody questions their loyalty based on appearance. That is partly because the 482nd broke the barrier, paid the price, proved what should have been obvious. Being American is about shared values, not shared appearance. The 442nd taught us that, with blood and death and sacrifice, taught us at a cost that should never have been necessary, but was paid anyway, without hesitation, without complaint, without regret. Go for broke. That was their motto. Risk everything. Hold nothing back for what you believe. They did. They paid the price. They proved the point. Now it is our responsibility to remember, to honor, to ensure their sacrifice meant something, to ensure America lives up to the ideals they died for, to ensure that never again do we ask citizens to prove their loyalty while holding their families prisoner, to ensure that the price the 442nd paid buys permanent change, not temporary acknowledgement, to ensure their story is never forgotten. Because history forgotten is history repeated, and we cannot afford to repeat this particular history. The 442nd Regimental Combat Team, 1943 to 1946. Go for broke. They went for broke. They won. They proved themselves beyond any doubt. Now we must be worthy of their sacrifice. That is the debt we owe. That is the lesson we must carry forward. That is how we honor the men who fought for a country that did not fully embrace them, until they made it impossible not to.